Hello and welcome to our presentation. My name is Daniel TOMIUK and I am co-author of the paper entitled A Qualitative Study into Teachers' Experiences with Emergency Distance Learning at the Start of the COVID-19 Pandemic. The other authors of this paper are Hasna ELKHANNOUBI, which is one of my students at the University of Quebec in Montreal, and Professor Mukesh SRIVASTAVA from the University of Mary Washington. With the COVID-19 pandemic, emergency distance learning solutions were quickly adopted by universities to continue providing their students with courses during lockdowns. This emergency transition from traditional classroom to online teaching created actually very unique and challenging experiences for teachers and is worth investigating as researchers. So we are currently conducting a qualitative study using focus groups to understand teachers' technology choices, the difficulties that they experienced, and the strategies that they employed as they sought to effectively deliver their courses online at the start of the pandemic. Our preliminary results corroborate the importance of universities providing instructors with technological solutions high in system quality that allow instructors to deliver high content quality while also providing technical help and support. These parallel the factors identified in the Delone and McLean 2003 model. However, our study also evidences the importance of collaboration and mutual aid among the instructors, so among the users of the technology, and this played a very important role in the adoption of technologies and the success of moving to emergency distance learning at the beginning of the pandemic. So our findings basically suggest that special attention must be paid to this factor to ease any type of transition to online teaching by universities in the future, especially under emergency conditions. The Delone and McLean model, as I mentioned before, actually served as a theoretical framework to guide our interviews and conduct our assessments during our focus groups. Now, we chose this model because it was parsimonious and has been demonstrated as valid in numerous studies, and also because it has been used extensively in e-learning research as well. So the COVID-19 pandemic changed the way people's lived their lives and changed their habits. Several rules were applied to limit its spread. This included things like social distancing, confinement, closure of schools and of non-essential services, etc. So, to slow the spread of the virus, lockdowns and social distancing measures were implemented in many countries, including Canada and the United States. And several schools and universities actually closed their doors, opting to switch to distance learning to reduce the spread of the virus. Now, distance learning was adopted as an emergency solution to replace traditional face to face teaching. And this was done, if you recall, at least in Canada, before the end of the actual winter 2020 semester. Many instructors were actually forced to adopt technologies without any prior or inadequate preparation for this transition. So, emergency online learning experience impacted both students and instructors. Some actually transitioned well, others did so with a lot of difficulty. So, for most, it led to stress, it led to challenges that had to be overcome in order to succeed with online teaching. Although studies regarding online teaching were numerous before the pandemic, these mainly focused on the experiences or the perspectives of the students. Few empirical studies actually take the teacher's perspective when it comes to online teaching and online teaching environments. And even fewer of these studies examine transitions that are made during emergency times. Getting a better understanding of teachers' points of view and learning from their experiences with regards to their choices of technology during the transition to remote teaching basically would allow us to help other teachers to ensure an effective transition to distance learning methods in the future. And also, our study or the results of our study would also provide a reference base for universities to better manage transitions to emergency distance learning in the future if the need ever arises. Now, among the most well-known models to study the adoption of new technologies in situations where the choice of technologies isn't imposed on the user, we find the model from Delone and McLean dating back to 2003. So, according to this model, the success of an information system is achieved through ensuring system quality, information quality, and service quality. Now, this model is one of the most widely used when studying the adoption of various information systems. And so we also adopted it to get the discussion going with the participants during the focus groups. So for our study, we went with a qualitative research approach. We did this because the qualitative approach has several strengths. One of them is basically the ability to explore the depth and complexity of social phenomena. Now, focus groups are particularly useful in identifying the reasons why something occurs, so the reasons behind it. So, the researcher's role here in a focus group is primarily just to stimulate interactions among the focus group members and to encourage group discussion. So, focus groups allow facilitators to ask follow up questions of members and often employ multiple sessions to do so. This helps to clarify previously shared comments by the participants and to expand on their experiences by encouraging them to provide more explanations or more detail. When participants share experiences in the focus group, it also encourages others to recall and share their own experiences as well. Usually, having one focus group is insufficient. A second and possibly a third session are used to confirm previous findings. After 3 sessions, however, most researchers experience what is called saturation and no longer uncover new information. So at this point, data becomes quite repetitive and predictable. This is typically where data collection ends. So we began our focus groups at the University of Quebec in Montreal, UQAM. As of now, 2 focus groups have been conducted. We chose to use the Zoom platform since the participants were all familiar with this interface. Based on recommendations provided by authors such as Babi and Banaquisto in 2010, we also wanted focus groups of 4 participants. We initially hoped to recruit 8 participants. Unfortunately, we obtained the participation of only 6 teachers, and all were teachers who were giving courses in IS and IT, so they did have a good general knowledge of technology and were not afraid to use them. Other teachers were available to talk to us and participate in a focus group, but none were available at convenient times and dates to have the discussion group. Because our focus was on the group rather than on the individual interviews, so we decided to just proceed with the participants we had at that point. So finally, 2 focus groups were created. Each group had 3 participants in it. So according to the Delone and McLean model, we define system quality as the technical success of the computer environment, which includes the platforms and the tools that are used on which the teacher relies to give his lessons. So our findings showed that even with the teacher's superior knowledge of IT and IS, it became obvious that some platforms seemed better suited than others for online teaching. Having IS or IT knowledge allowed teachers to quickly make a wise choice or decision among the platforms that were available to them. For participant 1, which we will refer to as P1 from now on, the Zoom platform was easy to use and the better choice clearly. So he stated that Zoom as a tool for learning and teleconferences, document sharing, and chat also works very well. However, P1 or participant 1 also noted that for him, Teams was a total failure. It just didn't work out for teaching well. Participant 2 or P2 expressed similar testimony. So for him too, the use of Zoom was a success. He noted that I found the basic functions were very easy to use. It's much more ergonomic than other video conferencing tools. He explained that the success of this platform was due to the free availability and its ease of use. On the other hand, he emphasized the issue of lack of security surrounding the Zoom platform, which explained why several other institutions or schools and universities resisted adopting the Zoom platform at the beginning or at the start of the emergency transition towards online teaching. So although for participant two, although Teams offered more security and better integration, according to him, several other flaws and limitations complicated its use, not to mention that it was also more difficult to use than Zoom. So other tools and platforms were also mentioned by P2, namely Moodle and Panopto. P2 also found Panopto easy to use but difficult to integrate with other platforms. So during the winter of 2020, which began with face-to-face teaching and ended online at the University of Quebec, it would therefore seem that even though with all the limits and security issues associated with the Zoom platform, it was the one that was chosen the most often or the most frequently compared to other platforms, mainly because of the ease of use aspect and because of the urgency that existed in rapidly finding a solution to complete the semester. Participant 3, P3, supported the others with respect to system quality. However, this participant preferred Panopto, which was a platform that the school had been implementing before the pandemic hit. He also expanded on the concept of system quality by addressing other concepts apart from only the platform itself, which was very interesting. He had a more holistic view of the situation when it came to system quality. So for him, ensuring system quality meant more than just choosing between Zoom, Teams, or Panopto or another type of platform. It also included other considerations in terms of hardware and IT tools necessary for the realization of the online course from home. So P3 noted there are several resources. You guys are only talking about software, but there is also the hardware, there is the lighting, there is the internet connection speed, the infrastructure, etc. And then P1 actually added to this, and don't forget the bandwidth. It's often a problem. So the focus group revealed that for most teachers, there was a need to reorganize inside of their homes and not just adopt a new platform. So they had to find quiet workspaces away from children who were now at home because the schools had closed down and away from pets as well. It was a real challenge to properly manage the home environment, so to ensure good sound quality, sufficient lighting, etc. And P3 actually noted at this point that none of us had experience with playing with lights, where to position the microphones, and other things like that. The help and support made available by the university were really lacking at this level. During the initial move to online courses, the focus of the school seemed to be entirely on ensuring that IT support was put in place and to guiding teachers in making a choice among available technological platforms. So the school really had a very myopic view when it came to ensuring system quality just by focusing on the platforms itself, but not on how to actually use them within the environment of the home. So little was offered in terms of training to make good use of these technological platforms, neither for teachers or for students. No one provided help to teachers on how to transform, for example, a room in their house or a basement into a studio to broadcast live classes from their homes or from some room or from some basement of theirs. The second focus group also confirmed all that had been raised by the participants of the previous focus group. These participants, so participants 4, 5, and 6, also had a strong background in IT and in information systems because they were teachers in this area. So they also acknowledged that this helped them facilitate the transition to online teaching. Um, P4 noted, of course, it made it easier for us because we are already in IT. It was easy because we already knew a little bit about the different technologies. So the need to create an adequate environment at home was also discussed by the second focus group. P6, so participant 6, noted that it took cameras. I bought a whiteboard, then I put another camera on the board. I bought a separate mic. had to find some software to try to edit my pre-recorded videos. So teachers tried many different solutions. Some designed spaces in their homes, often in a room somewhere or maybe in the basement, where they would teach and record lessons as though they were in an actual real classroom. Um, Among the participants in the second focus group, one described how he very quickly set up a studio in his basement. Another in the focus group, two, noted that I was very impressed with what he was doing in his house, creating a small studio from scratch. Now, that didn't work for me though, so I went for a simple solution. I just voiced over my PowerPoint slides. In each slide, I embedded an audio file. Sure, it wasn't as sophisticated as his solution was, but I think it still worked. His setup was very impressive, though it was a remote classroom. So, although the school did offer some help to teachers with the migration to certain technological platforms for online teaching, little to no help or advice was provided to teachers on how to best transform spaces in their homes into studios or online classrooms. P5 noted, I think that at the beginning of the lockdowns, the administration expected us, the teachers, to come and film our lessons in classrooms at school and then upload them online via Moodle. To my knowledge, no one did that. We didn't know if the virus spread through the air, how contagious it was, if it could remain on equipment in classrooms, and for how long. Personally, I avoided leaving my house during this period of time, and I especially did not want to touch equipment in the classrooms, which was possibly infected. So, according to participant three, teachers found themselves in a very complex situation of managing not only their new teaching environments, which were now being done at home, but also the teaching environments of their students as well. So he noted that the challenge I had was not only with what I used, I also had to coordinate myself with the students. The problem I had is that when I started a course, there were several difficulties. The microphone wasn't working, I had to manage my internet connection, etc. P1 added to that several students were having all sorts of technical difficulties with their own computers, but they weren't always expressing them because it was taking me time to deal with each of these problems. Now, service quality describes the help and technological support provided by the university to support teachers during the transition to online teaching. Now, according to two of the participants of Focus Group 1, technological support for existing solutions provided by the university did a relatively good job given the circumstances. However, according to participant 3, which again was part of Focus Group 1, there was a lack in terms of training and especially in showing teachers on how to create a high quality course content. So P3 noted, we really weren't well supervised at all. There was no training on how to create nice looking videos and make clear sound recordings. A lot was just trial and error on our part. So, despite the excellent work of the support services as to the existing platforms, teachers had to look really elsewhere or outside for more information on how to properly use microphones and lighting, etc. Uh, P1 noted, I wanted to know more than just what was available to us, so I went on YouTube. It became a reference for me at that time. And P2 also added, uh, I also found useful information using Google. For the second focus group, service quality was a total failure. According to the participants of Group 2, the training provided by technological support was completely insufficient, and it even happened that their own broadcasts were riddled with technical glitches, which did not leave the participants feeling secure with the proposed official solutions. And as was the case with the first focus group, the second also found too little help and guidance provided to teachers from the official channels at school and how to better adapt their home environment for online teaching. P6 noted, it's like they showed us here's the technology we have, but not how to make the best use of it from home. The school over-relied on formal channels of communications. Support employees were overloaded and had trouble keeping up with all the requests that they were getting. Several participants in both focus group mentioned that informal collaboration channels between the teachers during this period of transition would have been helpful, but were not organized by the school. P2 noted it happened that colleagues called me asking for my help. I too contacted others. There were many of these sort of exchanges. Everything was done informally. So, this impromptu form of collaboration between teachers was often done via telephone, Zoom calls, usually one on one, using small conference calls because the school was not providing any type of support for this collaboration between the actual teachers who were transitioning to emergency online teaching. So during the summer of 2022, additional focus groups are being planned in both Canada, the University of Quebec and Montreal, and in the US at the University of Mary Washington. In the second part of the study, we intend to focus on instructors who had little or limited knowledge of IT when the emergency transition to online teaching occurred. So we want to basically better understand how they actually coped with the challenges of having to go online, contrary to the teachers who actually had IT experience or were considered as being IT savvy. Although this research is still ongoing, several interesting early findings are emerging. Primarily, we note that the concept of system quality goes beyond the technology itself. So, system quality represents a criterion that encompasses several dimensions, namely ease of use, efficiency, reliability, and a need in terms of learning on how to best use the available technologies. But in our study, the quality of the system represents also not only the quality of the platform and the tools that were put at the disposal of the teachers, but also it includes the home environment in which these platforms and technologies were to be used. And this was neglected or not recognized by the school. So basically, system quality should not be seen as solely depending on the platform provided by the university, but also includes the working or home environment where these technologies are used. So teachers found themselves obligated to set up entire rooms or workspaces specific for online teaching, and this without any type of guidance from the school itself. So these spaces had to include many resources, for example, a powerful computer, software, all different sorts of softwares, and also cameras, microphones to provide clear sounds, adequate lighting, a stable and fast internet connection, and so forth. So teachers found themselves in a situation where they had to quickly learn how to manage all these elements in addition to operating the available software, which was provided by the school. So, in the future, adequate training must include and incorporate these elements to guarantee a fluid and easy transition to online learning, especially during emergencies. Second, our study shows that not all teachers possess similar backgrounds when it comes to technology. So we conclude from this that adequate training must necessarily be adaptable to individual needs. A one size fits all solution when it comes to training is unlikely to be the right approach. This is not easy to do during emergency when IT support services may already be overwhelmed, and we recognize this. So additional research is needed in this particular area. Third, many universities have a hierarchical structure. So it isn't surprising that under stressful situations, they often fall back on official information channels and have difficulty adapting. So focus group participants noted that their school over relied on the school's IT support to provide help, assistance, and solutions to both teachers and students. During the emergency transition to online teaching, IT support actually became quickly overwhelmed with an incessant amount of help and assistance requests. The questions and help that was requested from IT support pertained not only as to what platforms were available and how to use the platforms, but also on the difficulties of teaching from one's home environment. And it seemed like the IT support were not prepared for that. So the school's IT support were not prepared for these types of questions. They could not offer much help or advice on how to best transform one's home environment or one's basement to be more auspicious to online teaching. As compensation for this lack, collaboration and mutual support came up through unofficial channels because the school's official channels could not provide adequate assistance to teachers. So, this included the sharing of ideas, solutions, and good practices. So, as we mentioned before, collaboration and mutual aid weren't supported by the university, but rather developed naturally among the participants. The importance of collaboration and mutual aid has not been adequately addressed in IT and IS acceptance models. Um, so schools must work to put in place these mechanisms which facilitate and encourage informal sharing of experiences and solutions between the instructors when it comes to e-learning. And this is especially important during emergencies when formal channels are likely to become overwhelmed. So thank you very much for your attention. We will be taking questions and comments during the presentation.